Every year I choose a word to follow, and so in 2019 I've chosen patience as my word to lead me through the year. And so, of course, as you can imagine, I was exercising patience by making sourdough, rereading books, taking slow walks. But one thing in particular, this word was very helpful with, and that was those moments that I would naturally rush through, because I am the kind of person who always wants to get things done. I know that done is better than perfect, and sometimes I know for some people that would be a blessing and really good because maybe they overthink things. It's not the case with me. I'm on this other side of the spectrum, so I just rush through things. And that patience was a really good reminder that some processes can be enjoyed more, can be more fun and more pleasant if I pay attention, if I'm in the moment, if I don't rush through it, if I don't look ahead too much. And so this project that I will be showing you today is a perfect exercise of patience because you can take it slow. It encourages slowness. In fact, the slower you do it, the more time you spend on it, the better it's going to be. And so with this word patience, that's the first time when I dived into making junk journals. So it all starts with a book. Today we will be making a junk journal, which is one of my favorite kinds of books, but based in an old book. We will pay attention to choose papers that go inside that are beautiful, and we will make it very ours and very personal. Follow my process, and by the end of it you will be holding your very own handmade junk journal, and this can later serve you as your place where you express your feelings and emotions, where you write, scribble, paint, draw, and do whatever you like, make marks that capture what you feel in this moment. So first of all, what you need is a book. This is the book that I've chosen. I know this is difficult for many of you. I mean, it feels wrong to rip the pages of an old book and fill it with something else, but try and choose a book that maybe is already broken, that is already been put somewhere in your attic or in your cellar and no one's been reading it. Think of it as giving it a new life, as bringing it back to life. If you don't have any old books that you feel comfortable with turning into art journals in your own collection, then maybe look at car boots, garage sales, flea markets, or any kinds of thrift stores or shops where they have stacks of them. I would say that for this process, I like to choose a book that is pretty to start with. So the cover is, is something more interesting than just a plain cover. So like this one's already got some marks of, I don't know, maybe a child scribbled on it or something like this. It's a little dirty, I don't mind that. It's a little ripped, but it's got this pretty illustration also at the front. So, to me that's a good start. I have to feel inspired to be able to work with this book. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, which is totally fine, choose something more plain. Something that doesn't have anything interesting on the cover. I think this one's probably a little plainer, yeah? And you can do some painting on top. In this lesson, we won't be embellishing the covers too much because of the choice of a book. I like to keep it simple. I like to allow this book to be what it was a little bit, to remind me that it was a book, if you know what I mean. But if you have a plainer book, feel free to add some more collage and painting on top of the covers to cover its plainness, maybe. So this allows you to choose a book that you feel comfortable with. So what we'll focus on in this process will be creating the inside of this book. So of course, all the pages that are in there already, they're gonna have to go. I already done that. So use a sharp blade, a sharp knife, to very carefully cut the pages out of it. Be careful not to damage the spine, because the spine is what holds this cover together. We want to keep it, it's very important. So take your time, allow it to be a slow process, and slowly you will get all the pages out, and keep them, of course, keep them. You might want to turn them into another piece of art, put them in your drawer, and later you can use them for collage or whatever suits you. And then once you took the pages out, you will end up with just covers and the spine. And I like to cover the spine when it's in good condition. This one is in good condition. I like to cover it with a little bit of PVA glue. PVA glue is that glue that kids use at school. It's a glue that's white when it's wet but dries clear. Or maybe you have gel medium, that would work very well as well. You know, the layer doesn't have to be thick, but just to maybe make it a little stronger, make it a little stiffer, because it will get a lot of use. But if your cover is pretty damaged, then you might want to, the spine, you might want to try and fix it a little bit, and this will add a wonderful mark, already a mark of your journey and of your process. So if your book does need some fixing, your spine, you might want to use masking tape like painter's tape or cotton tape. Cotton tape is one of my favorite tools, supplies. You can get it from chemists, pharmacies. Of course, they're made for, to hold the bandage in place. They are self-adhesive and they are made out of cotton. So they are brilliant for mixed media. Definitely try and include them, because they provide you with texture and they're just so easy to use because they're self-adhesive. I love everything that's self-adhesive. So if you have a crack in your spine or something like here, you see, I bought this book that was already in pieces. So this spine is totally ripped, but this is fixable. You can do it with some PVA glue, with some of this tape. Just be patient and work your way through it, and it will look pretty cool with cotton tape, because it will you'll keep that organic, natural look, rather than adding something plasticky like, sellotape. So in this case, if your book is as damaged as this one, the cover, I would add a few pieces of this tape here and there, and then I would cover it with PVA glue just to keep it in place, let it dry, and then it's just going to be perfect, and it will have that slightly damaged look, which I quite like for my art journals. But for the ease of this lesson, I'm choosing this cover, which is pretty ready to go. There are different kinds of junk journals. Some people make them really junky with old newspapers, old leaflets, and they create a book that later is really allowing, because there's nothing to waste, no pretty paper inside to spoil, so maybe you feel more free and more encouraged. So that's, one way you could go. There are some people who make their junk journals out of beautiful, prettiest papers and ephemeras that there are, and then they don't do anything inside. Their junk journals are simply a collection of those beautiful elements. I like to make my junk journals something in between. So I like to use pretty papers. I like to start with pretty stuff, but maybe not too precious, not most precious. But I like them to have some sort of beauty to them, because I find this inspires me to work on them. I sometimes use more junky things like leaflets. I think it encourages that freedom. So when you're choosing your papers, think of what you are going to do inside, if you are going to do anything, and what is it that you need. Do you need inspiration like beautiful papers, or do you need encouragement? So maybe a substrate that's less demanding and doesn't require that much thought. So now is your moment to choose your papers for your junk journal. uh, allow this process to be slow. Like I said at the beginning, this is when we exercise this slowness, this luxury of being slow, of taking our time. So take those papers out, go through them, put them on little piles, see which ones feel most appealing to you, which ones you want to include, celebrate them, give them your time, give them your thought. Don't rush through this process, because I find this bit of the process really inspiring sometimes. So go for it. Now here is this important bit that I believe really matters, because I used to rush this bit. Choosing papers and allowing yourself to be slow in this process, to be very mindful, and to choose papers that speak to you, basically, that are appealing, visually appealing, that you find beautiful. Like I said, there's lots of different kinds of junk journals, but I really love the kind that is inspiring to start with, that you don't have to do anything inside to already feel inspired, because this is what's going to make you want to work inside it. So I am choosing papers that I got from antique shops, from flea markets, from car booths, from eBay. You can buy lovely ledgers or old books or notebooks that are empty inside or filled. And if you feel comfortable with it, use them to create your own junk journal. You are giving them a new life. Think of this as, you know, giving them a new life, because that's going to make you feel a bit more brave, I hope. When you choose these papers, put them on a pile, and then prepare yourself something that you can use as a guide for your maximum size. So you want to take your book and take your cover, and cut a piece of paper that will be just a little smaller, that will fit inside nicely. So you see, that's the maximum size you want your pages inside to be. And this will be very helpful, this guide. And then take each sheet of paper that you want to include in your journal, cut it to the right size, this is the maximum size, or smaller, and put it on the pile. Fold it in half and put it on the pile. Now, like I said, the papers cannot be bigger than this guide, but can be smaller. They can be in different shapes. They can have their edges ripped or cut nicely, like this one. You see, this all adds to the texture and adds interest. A strip of paper, you have a leftover paper from something, that's brilliant. And then you can put them all together in 3 signatures. When you're choosing your papers, also try and keep them varied if you like. If you want your junk journal to be really inspiring and like stimulating creatively, then keep them varied. Yeah, so there are some papers that are totally plain and, you know, will allow me to make whatever I want on them, and some that are super busy, like this one, on which maybe all I will want to do will be adding a word or a cutout or making a very simple collage. Because when you're working in a junk journal, when you're working especially daily, you need different things on different days. Sometimes you want to paint and express a little more. Sometimes you just want to do something very simple and very plain. And having a variety of different kinds of papers and patterns will really help you in this process. So now, like I said, we're putting them into 3 signatures. I'm trying to keep them varied. So basically you're putting one inside another, right in the middle. Okay, so I had basically 30 pieces of paper, so 3 signatures, that means there's 10 in each, roughly, mostly. Not very good at maths. But you may be thinking, how many pages should you include in your junk journal? Well, grab them all together when you're in the process of, you know, cutting them. Grab them all together, put them inside your book, on your spine, and see if there's some space left on both sides of the spine. That's good, you know, that's the kind of size you will probably want. You don't want a stack that's gonna be taller than your spine, right? You need some space in there because this is a junk journal, so there's a chance, hopefully, you will be adding some painting inside, and even if you work with just acrylics and collage, not too much dimension, it will still be, you know, it will get a little thicker. So you want some space on your spine, and once you got that, you are ready to go. So we have 3 signatures. Now it's time to poke the holes. So we are getting our guide. Back to the guide, and I am going to mark 3 holes, dots, 1 right in the middle and 2 above the middle, above and below the middle hole, in a even space. And I was looking and can't find the ruler, so I'm just not gonna waste my time. I'm gonna fold it in half to see where the middle is, roughly. That's my hole number 1, and then even spaces, hole number 2 and hole number 3. Now you gotta know this about me. I am not a very precise person. Not precise at all. Maybe these are actually spaced a little bit too much. Let me find something smaller. I'm not a very precise person. I like to do things fast. So that is why this lesson is so important to me, because I am allowing myself to take some more time to really learn that slow process, and that's just really important to me. Okay, so now I'm going to poke these holes. Of course, we need them to be proper holes. Now this is an owl. Yes, it's called an owl, I think. It's a really cool tool, very sharp, so don't, you know, go wild. But you could do it with just a thick, fat needle, or a needle. Yeah, can't think of anything else. Something sharp, you know. And now it's time to poke holes in all of these papers in each signature. So you can put them together. Make sure they're all lined well. Some of them can be in the middle, some can be, like you see, a little lower. It doesn't matter. They will hold together, but I like them to be all like in the middle. And you can open the signature. Put your guide inside. Very difficult this is for me. And now poke the holes through all of the papers if you're brave. At the same time, I mean all of the papers of one signature. Or just go each paper after another and poke your holes slowly. All of this is fine. But because my papers are pretty thin, I can do all of them at once, and that's totally fine. Just make sure the hole is really there. Now this really matters whether your papers are thick or thin. Okay, this one ripped, so it's not going to be very good. It's okay. Try to choose papers that aren't too thin and aren't too thick. So probably watercolor paper is not going to be good to go inside, because it's going to be difficult to sew through it to make that hole, and it's going to add volume to your book, unnecessary. Also the super thin papers like tissue, or those really old books where paper basically just rips in your hands, that's also probably not ideal, because once you sew through it, which we'll do in a minute, it just might rip, so that's also unnecessary. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing with all of my signatures, which is 3, and then we'll put it together. All right, and one more thing I forgot is we have to make holes in our spine. So of course we need 3 sets of those 3 holes, 1 set for each signature. So we have to space them, you know, sort of roughly evenly. I mean, yeah, very precise job, but you know, it's okay. I'm just gonna think 1 here, 1 here, 1 in the middle, of course, and 1 here. So there is some space between the signatures. Yeah, there, that will be fine. Okay, so I'm just going to mark them first, maybe. I was getting a little stressful, I gotta tell you. The choosing papers was my favorite bit, but this, you know, making holes and sewing it together, that's a very precise job. Though you don't have to make it that precisely. Okay, so I'm poking little holes. Now with the spine is usually made out of fabric, so be very careful. Don't make your holes too big. Make them actually very small. Just lightly poke through, and your needle in a minute will help you make those holes bigger. And at the same time, you're not gonna rip the fabric too much, damaging your spine. Okay, so now on to the very stressful bit. I have a needle here, so that needle has to be a little thicker than your usual needle. I have a piece of string here. Now this has to be a little thicker than, you know, the thread that you would use in your sewing machine. It can be a waxed piece of string that is made especially for bookbinding. That's gonna be fine, but you don't have to stress about it. I just happen to have this, and I don't know what that is, but it's got really nice color. It's sort of flexible. It's gonna be fine. We are not, you know, making anything that has to be too precise here, so you can definitely relax, especially if this is a stressful bit, like I said. Okay, so this is going to be my first signature. I like these papers. When I open my book, I'll see those to start with. So we open the signature. Try to, you know, keep the papers together so you don't mess up the holes. And now go through the middle hole from the inside. That's all you have to remember. That's how you start, and it's going to make it easy. Through the middle hole from the inside. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through the whole signature and then through this hole in my spine. Okay, and now top or bottom hole, whatever you choose, through the spine and through the signature. Ugh, I already lost that hole. I managed to find it. Wow, that seriously is stressful. Okay, that's that. Now through the bottom hole from the inside. So it's ideal if you can go through all of the holes at once, but sometimes they just getting a little lost, or it's not very obvious where they are, so you know, you gotta be a bit more patient with it. And we're on the outside again, and now once more you're going through the middle hole to come out inside. Okay, and now we are inside again. We have 2 pieces of string. We cut it, we tie it together, and I tell you, that exercises my patience. it's cool. It's cool. I already love it. So tie a knot and you'll have your first signature in. Don't tie it too tight, okay? So you don't rip through the papers and you have some wriggle space later to open your book, to add more to add some painting inside. So I started on the inside, from the inside through the middle hole, and I ended up with a knot inside the signature. If you prefer, you can start on the outside through the middle hole and follow the rest, and you will then end up with a knot on the outside, and that might be a look that you prefer. It will look a little more messy and a little bit more fun probably. You could even tie some I don't know, beads or trinkets onto those hanging bits on the outside. Okay, now I am ready to add my 2 other signatures exactly the same way. Alright, now the signatures are all in, so the book holds together, which is pretty amazing. To me, that's like a miracle, considering my patience. And you could leave it just as it is because it's filled with very varied papers, so I hope they would inspire you already to work on them. But I like to add just a little bit more, just a few marks. This will help you if you struggle with the fear of a blank page. When you open your art journal or whatever it is, the surface that you want to work on, and you feel a little overwhelmed, you don't know where to start, how to start. If you do what I'm going to do right now, this will help you jump over that fear because you will already have something on most of the pages. There will be that starting point, and all you have to do when you want to work on any of them will be to respond to what's already on there rather than come up with something new and make that initial decision, that initial call, initial mark, because the initial mark already be on there. Okay, so when you are preparing your papers for your signatures, you were cutting them, you probably ended up with a pile of little cutouts or strips of paper that maybe you would think of throwing in the bin. Well, don't. And if you did, then dig in that bin and grab them. I like to use, especially when I get a strip like, for instance, like that, I like to fold it in half. And then cover it with a PVA glue. And then open my book on one of the pages that is a little plainer, or not necessarily, and glue it onto the edge of that page. It's not very straight, but I'm actually fine with that. It's okay, I don't mind. And that already, you know, gives you something more, some more interest. So that's how you could use your leftover papers, or to just create little collage, or just glue them inside to add that texture, to add that interest, to have that initial first mark. Now, using an old credit card for that is the best thing you can do, really, because credit card, something that's flat and pretty, you know, stiffer, will spread the glue well, and it will also get rid of those air bubbles, which are not necessarily that cool. Okay, so I will do that with the leftover papers that I have from preparing the papers for the signatures, but also you might want to grab some other papers and some collage elements to fill your book with those extra textures. For instance, I have an old page from my old art journal, one of my first art journals. It was loose, it came out, and I'm thinking I'm gonna bring it back to life. I'm gonna use it again by gluing it down on one of the pages, or maybe just use a piece of that tape, cotton tape or painter's tape or washi tape or sellotape maybe if you like the finish, and glue it in that, put it in that way. Yeah, so now I can cut it to the right size. And that's how you can also add extra pages into your journal when you run out of space and you still want to work in it, right? Because that's very easy. And that cotton tape is really good because it's pretty strong. If you're using a masking tape, like painter's tape, sometimes it's not going to be very strong, that glue, because of course it's meant to be easily peeled off the wall once the paint is done. So you might want to add a little bit more PVA glue, but I love the look of cotton or masking tape. And you have some leftovers, keep on using them, add them to your book, add more marks, add more images, add more textures. I have a tissue here, maybe a piece of fabric, stapled inside. That would be so cool. Now, once you've done that, you can add some stuff to your covers, or you can keep it as it is. I really love this cover, so I don't want to do much on it, but I would like to put a mark, my own mark, on it. So I'm just going to put just a tiny little bit of paper, of paint, acrylic paint, with just old credit card, like a very messy kind of mark. I mean, it's not much, but you also have to think of how this book is going to turn during the process of filling it in. Yeah, if you use a lot of mediums, there's a high chance that it will get a little dirty with paint here and there, and that you might accidentally make some extra marks on it over the filling it in process. So treat this project as an ongoing thing. You know, you can keep on adding things to this book. You can make it more yours. I would say take your time. Don't do too much to start with on the covers, and allow this to evolve and change with time, because I think this is really, really important when it comes to our journaling. Allowing this book to evolve and change is the essence of a mindful process, when we pay attention to letting go and letting things be as they are, you know, responding rather than planning and wanting to have the final result straight away. Allowing yourself to work slowly and to take your time is a luxury that we all can afford from time to time, I like to believe. Nowadays, we are so used to instant gratification. We have one-click purchases on Amazon that come to your door next day, if not the same day sometimes. We have automated processes at work. We have drugs, we have medicines that will make us feel better straight away, right away. So if you have a cold, there's no need to suffer, because after 20 minutes you'll feel brand new. So we're used to, making things, getting things, making things better right away, straight away, without too much waiting. So allow yourself to really be in this process of choosing papers, of creating your book. I know this is hard if you like to rush through things, because I am the best example of it. It takes a lot of patience, but it is a great exercise. It feels and becomes meditative. And I think this is another way in which we can use our art and our art process to become our best versions of ourselves and make our lives full of happiness, really, those little happy moments.